We're in for an interesting conversation and an interesting take. And you guys may be surprised at what I've found in regards to the Carmelo and Anthony's case. As much as we want to be supportive of our people, the facts are the facts. So before I get started, as you know, my name is Arlene J. Ramsey, and the name of my show is called Everyone Let's Talk, which I air every Thursday at 7:15 p.m. until 8:15 p.m. I'm a little warm because our fan went out here in the living room, so bear with me. All right, so some things that I found out in regards to the Carmelo Anthony's case. For one, this is a tragic event for both families, right? For Carmelo's family and for the Metcalfs. First and foremost, I have empathy for both families, okay? In regards to why there aren't any black jurors, I've read that some black jurors their responses were typical. One stated something along the lines of, I can't see myself sending a brother to jail. Someone else mentioned that silence is deafening and silence really matters. And I wonder what that means. And unfortunately, they were not asked to expound on what they meant by that. One thing I have to remind us as a people, this is 2026, and we still find ourselves going in situation outside of the black community and speaking unprofessionally or handling ourselves in ways where people need to decode what we're saying and what we're thinking. And we don't understand that, or we do understand that those who took over this country and have made all the rules have done so in a way to keep black people at the bottom of the totem pole. Yet, for some reason, we continue to move in ways that lack strategy and lack intellect and lacked insight, foresight, and long vision. And that's unfortunate because Carmelo Anthony had not one person as a juror that represents him or the black community. I've learned that they also scratched out teachers. So if you were a school teacher, you were not allowed to be a part of a jury. I am not sure why they etched out school teachers, but I can assume that that was done because school teachers will have some kind of empathy for children. They're around children, that it's their job. So teachers understand, the the testosterone, quick second decisions and things like that that children make, and they're more inclined to have some kind of empathy if they were to be on a juror or a part of a jury. So school teachers were not were crossed off, but that was one strategy that we failed to put ourselves in the room and allow ourselves to be a part of the decision making process so that Carmelo Anthony had a fighting chance. Another thing that I've learned, I'm not sure if you all followed this case, but when this happened, I was in and out of following the case. I don't know everything as far as the chain of events has happened, but another thing I've learned with the Carmelo Anthony case, I'm not sure if those of you saw where Austin Metcalf's father said that he uh, forgive Carmelo Anthony. I'm not sure if you all have heard him say that last year, but I've heard him say it on news, right? He did say that he forgive Carmelo Anthony. He was disappointed and upset, but he did not have a lot of negative things to say about Carmelo Anthony or the situation at hand, right? Um, his brother, the twin, the other twin, would say that it was his fault. The other twin looked like he was bewildered. He didn't know what to say in regards to the situation, but he also did not say anything negative about Carmelo Anthony, right? Who of you saw when the father showed up to the press conference when the Carmelo Anthony's family prayed on TV. The Austin Metcalf's father showed up to that press conference to pray with them, but the person that they hired as their family spokesperson disrespected Austin Metcalf's father and told him that he was not allowed to be there and that he could not pray with them. At that time, I thought that that was wrong. Now, I am not sure if the Metcalf father had said anything or did he disrupt the press conference. I wasn't sure. So I didn't have an opinion on that at the time, but I thought that the spokesperson was wrong at that time for disrespecting him in front of a press conference when he showed up to pray with the family, right? And it shows that Carmelo Anthony's parents, family, and supporters did not show empathy for the entire situation. I think we get into the mindset of this is blacks against white, right? And I understand that that is a factor in our life and in the United States. It is a factor, right? I am a black woman. I understand that. But we haven't learned how to deal with complexity and nuances. And that means that we cannot handle every situation the same because every situation is not the same, right? Although it is pretty predictable that when a white kid shoots up a school or when that white guy went to the what is his name, Kyle Rittenhouse, what did he get, 2 years, and he shot a few people, or the other white guy that went to the church and shot a few people at a church, and they gave him they brought him to Burger King and he had a burger and some ice cream or whatever the case may be before he went to the courthouse. We do know that these things happen, but I do believe as a society we put too much energy on that and we allow ourselves to get thrown off of our strategy. And oftentimes, we don't have great strategy at all. There's just a lot of complaining about what is happening to us as a people, but we're not learning how to move different. And that's the problem. So here's what I think. When Austin Metcalf's father said on national TV that he forgave Carmelo Anthony as a woman, and I don't have children, but I had to raise three of my cousins, right? I'm not a wife, but I'm in a relationship. As a woman, I would have had a conversation with my significant other on what we can do to mend this situation. This situation should have turned out to be a mending of the family. Please mute your. Thank you. This situation should have turned out to be an enmeshment is kind of unhealthy. We don't need to enmesh with another family, but we should have created. I'm saying we. They should have created a blended family. They should have taken that opportunity to hone in on the fact that the father said that he forgave Carmelo Anthony. And that told me at that time that the father knows what kind of person his son is. So he knows that his son has the ability to overpower and overwhelm other people. So him forgiving Carmelo speaks to the fact that he knows his son. Of course, he wouldn't say that, but his forgiveness on national TV spoke for him. It spoke that. The Anthonys were not able to see that as an opportunity for them to hone in and see what they can do to make things better. They could not act for their son or react for their son. He made a decision, and it turns up that someone had lost their life. As adults that are supposed to be wise, we have to learn how to strategize in ways to see how we can make a bad situation a little bit better. Right now, if it was me, I would have said, listen, can we have the family, you guys come over? If they're uncomfortable to come over our house, how about you invite us over to your house? We'll cook some food. If they don't want us to bring food that we cooked at the house, how about we cook at your house? How about we see what we can do to blend families and show that we are sorry for what our son has done, and we're just as sorry for this situation overall, because still a young teenager has lost his life and he had a promising future, right? And again, I don't condone bullying. I don't condone disrespect. I don't condone the fact that Austin thought it was okay to just tell Carmelo Anthony to move from under the tent knowing that it was raining. However, they mentioned such a thing as tent culture. Tent culture, right? So I don't play sports for school, so I'm not sure. But common sense tell me that when you play sports, there is such thing as tent culture. You would have your team, the team and their friends, and they're strategizing about their game. They're just talking about their game, and they're building their camaraderie under a tent, right? So that's a part of the team experience, the sports experience. Therefore, Carmelo Anthony knows that as well because he is a part of a team. So he knows about 10 culture. So when they told him to move, although it's pouring raining, couldn't there be another way to handle that situation, as in to say, man, listen, it's raining outside. If you want, I'll go sit on the lower bleachers so I don't hear your conversation. Or I'll go to the corner far away so I don't hear. But it's raining outside, and I was told it was okay for me to sit under the tent until the rain is over with. Couldn't there be another way to express himself other than I'm not leaving? And these are the things that we do as a community, and we don't understand that it doesn't make for balanced and healthy situations. Disrespect cannot be our end all be all, right? That only works when you're dealing with other ignorant people. This mentality of shutting down conversation and boom, I told you, these kind of mentalities, again, only work with people that live and dwell in the lower tier. But when it comes times to dealing with court systems and situations of the upper echelon, that kind of way of dealing with things will not work, because you still have to show due cause. You still have to back up your statements, back up your actions, and because we are black, because we are indigenous, we have it hard. So we get no grace or no slack, period. Right? We know that. However, we should be in tuned enough to hear when there are opportunities for us to hone in and pull some grace out of a situation for us. What I saw from Carmelo Anthony's family, it seems as if his mother is has a personality disorder, or she's spoiled. She's used to getting her way. She's used to fake crying, right? The crocodile tears. She's a very attractive woman. She's used to that, and she's used to people allowing her to have her way, whether she's right or wrong. Carmelo's father looked like he's worn out. It seems as if the mother makes all the decisions and the father is just, it seems like he goes along with things. So where's the father's input in all of this? So when I look at family dynamics like that, and being that I studied psychology and I am certified in behavioral health, I can see that that looks like an unhealthy family dynamic where the mother wears the pants and she wears everyone in the house out. And so it seems like she's winning in life because she only deals with her family, and she finds ways to manipulate her family and get her way. But when it comes to a situation like this where her son has taken someone else's life, and you show no empathy for the other family, and you offer, these are things that women are supposed to do, right? We are known for that. We are known for baking the pie, baking the cake, making a dish and bringing it over to the next family and introducing ourselves and breaking the ice. There was none of that with Carmelo Anthony's mom, and that shows that she is void of empathy. So in that, that's what the rest of the world saw as well. People are watching her, right? She did not show up well as a woman to take charge, to ensure that her family has gotten the best sentence possible and that the world see them as a decent family, because she was too into herself, too into saying that her son Carmelo Anthony did not mean to take someone else's life and that Carmelo Anthony is not wrong. And I understand her feeling that way, but what about the fact that another child lost their life? What about the fact that Carmelo Anthony still one day has to show up in court and face a jury about his actions? There was nothing that that family has done to persuade the juror and everybody that's watching them to let them know that this is a decent family that actually cares about community, society, and the well-being of all people, right? So we've heard that the Carmelo, the Anthonys, they've on their gun GoFundMe, they've raised over $600,000. However, they were not allowed to touch the money. The money went directly to the attorneys for the attorney fees and so on. Another thing I thought of is, why didn't the Anthonys say offer to pay for the funeral? Say, listen, you know what? We'll put some money towards the other brother, the other twins' college fund. Something, right? Now, I know some people will say, okay, Arlene, that's a bit of a stretch, but hear me out when I say that I'm thinking about my son, and I don't have any children, but my son took someone's life, and he's a black boy, and society already don't have grace or empathy for the indigenous people. So therefore, I want to put the best strategy forward so that they can have some mercy on my son. She cried on TV and asked them to have mercy on Carmelo, but she did absolutely nothing to show that she has empathy so that they can have mercy on Carmelo. It's unfortunate, right? So what I see this as, there is no black juror. The other thing that I've learned is that Carmelo's attorney found it not robbery for Carmelo to not sit on stand. Of all people, Carmelo was not to take stand, so he was not cross-examined on stand. We needed to hear what Carmelo thought and felt and what actually happened from Carmelo's perspective on that day. But his attorney thought it was best for him to not do that. So now this leads me to say this. You all know that attorneys and judges are in bed, right? They have a great partnership. That's just the game, the name of the game. Something tells me that in that city of the state of Texas, they had enough time to sit back and observe the Anthonys and how they're handling this situation. And they decided to set this case up for Carmelo Anthony to lose. I don't believe that his attorney did the best job for Carmelo Anthony to win. I believe that there was a conversation that was had, and that attorney was told to steer that family in a direction to ensure that Carmelo doesn't win. Carmelo should have been able to take that stand to explain to people and the jury what actually happened and why he took Austin's life. The other thing is Carmelo Anthony had a legal size weapon, right? The blade he had was 3 point something inches, so it was legal for the state of Texas. Many people are saying, why would he bring a blade to a track meet? Why is he wearing a blade? You know, I published a book on school bullying titled The Eclipse of School Torment, A Guide to End School Bullying, where I've given resolve on bullying and insight to bullying. And I say this, most students, most children do not bring weapons to school. When they do bring weapons to school, it is because they already faced a threat. So I'm going to repeat that again. Most children, most students do not bring weapons to school. When they bring weapons to school, it is because they have already dealt with threats. This is why it was important for Carmelo Anthony to take that stand. I truly believe that he has faced the twins at some point, or heard about them, or there were rumors, but he was already threatened to a certain extent in order for him to think it was not robbery to bring a knife. with him to school or track meet. Carmelo Anthony is a child that has not been in trouble. He's like the model student. He runs for track, so he plays two types of sports. He has a part-time job. I forgot at which store. He has siblings that look up to him. He's the leader on his track team and on the football team. Yet in all, he found himself in a situation like this. How could something like this happen? I'm going to say that his parents failed him, and that is unfortunate. And him not knowing better, he's learning his way. When he, give him another 10, 15 years, he's going to come to the realization on how he could have made a better decision and how his parents have failed him. The spokesperson that the mother hired to be the family's spokesperson, civil rights person, he's a convicted felon, or have had charges back in 2011 where he was charged for child abuse, where he shook his ex-girlfriend's 2-year-old child, but he shook the child so hard that it caused bleeding in the brain and bleeding in the eye. Then he caught another charge in 2019 and served time until 2001. 221, I'm sorry, 2021. So people are looking at things like this as in to say, why would Carmelo Anthony's mother hire someone who has a background like that to be the family spokesperson? And what did he do? He showed up on TV at press conferences for the community, showing absolutely no empathy for the situation at all, spewing racist slurs, talking about this is all about racism, not having an ounce of compassion for the family that is left with one child that is missing and a brother who is missing his twin brother, who his twin brother died in his hands, in his arms. And again, I get it. We have seen countless numbers of cases where white people have taken the lives of black people. But I say again, we have to learn how to separate each situation. We should not treat our situation as if it's tied in to the last black person's story, because that's how we will lose. We have to always apply the best strategy for us to win whenever we find ourselves in a predicament. But the disrespect, the cursing, and the carrying on, and although white people do it, and I see that we spend too much time complaining. Look, they're always, and that's absolute. So let's say oftentimes they give their own people that grace. But there's such thing as self-preservation. Every group and cluster of people will do that for their own people. It seems as if the black community are the only ones that don't understand self-preservation, and that we got to give ourselves that grace and allow ourselves to escalate and progress. But we are not to give that grace to the outsider, right? Oftentimes we may give the grace to the outsider and we give none to ourselves. And we have no strong foundation. We haven't built anything in recent times for us to rely on. So we're relying on other groups of people for our needs. So our system of self-preservation is weak. And society knows that, right? So it's unfortunate to come to this understanding about this case, but this is the reality of it. Now, I've seen a brother talk about, he saw it on the video of what actually happened, where Carmelo Anthony went into the case and about under the tent, and about 2 minutes after, he's seen the Metcalfs approach him, and of course he can't see or he can't hear what actually happened, but he saw what happened, and he states that it was a fight where they jumped him, and Carmelo Anthony was trying to get from under the tent, and you could see them pulling on his hoodie. His hoodie almost came off, and someone pulled him back into the tent. So when he got pulled back into the tent, that's when he reached into his bag, pulled out the blade, and hit Austin Metcalf in the chest. Now, I haven't seen the video, right? So they found a way to take this video down because I've been searching all over for this video. And today's conversation was supposed to be about meditation, but when I heard the verdict and that is sentenced to up to 35 years, I said I'm going to push that back and discuss this case. I'm still trying to find that video, so I'm going to have a follow-up in regards to this case. Right now, they're looking to have an appeal for this case. There's all kinds of rumors that are being spread. People are saying that the family had bought a new car and a new house. No, and this is the other thing. Carmelo Anthony's family are kind of well-to-do. They live a comfortable life. I don't think his mother worked. I think she's a stay-at-home mom, but she takes care of herself, takes care of her family, and that's another thing that we have to consider. And I know it's draining, but many people outside of our community and outside of our culture find it, how can I say it? It's appalling to realize that black people can actually amass and acquire some wealth and live comfortably. They take that as if it's like you committed a crime by living comfortably. Now, why I'm saying this is, and I'm not saying that we should just be on our best behavior, but I'm saying that we have to, or we should, take these things into account. So of all people, we should be applying the best, the most shrewd strategy about our lives, because we cannot afford to not be strategic people. We can't afford it, right? Now, when it comes to Carmelo Anthony, paying attention to his mom, seeing her, I'm getting the vibes. Like I said, that personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, crying crocodile tears to get my way. When you live with people like that, they siphon and drain your energy. It's a lot of chaos, yelling and screaming. It's always something that's going on in the house. And that tends to keep people on their toes, on pins and needles, keep people agitated. Now, why I'm saying that? Somebody, please mute your phone. So, why I'm saying that? They were saying that Carmelo Anthony provoked the fight because he looked like he wanted a fight when he came to the tent. So he provoked the fight. So I guess in the state of Texas, if you look like you're ready to fight, they will say that you're agitating and provoking a fight. So hence why it's important to learn the law in each state that you live in, right? Because I don't think that that's an issue here in New Jersey. I don't know about New York or any other state, but in Texas that is a law that if you look like you're angry or look like you want to fight, or if they think that that's what you look like, they would say that you're actually provoking or agitating a fight. So they looked at Carmelo Anthony as the aggressor, and they're saying that he's the aggressor, not that he went under that tent and started arguing with them. They're going by his disposition, that he looked like he wanted a fight, and that made him the aggressor. So when they asked him to leave, and he says, "I'm not leaving," that's another notch against him because he was already the aggressor. So what they're saying is, you cannot be the aggressor and then claim self-defense. That's what they're saying, right? So this leads me to what kind of household or what happens in Carmelo Anthony's home, where he comes out to a track meet or he goes anywhere and he's looking upset and angry. I come from a household where I was raised by someone with narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I can't, diagnose her, but I know she's a narcissist by the things that she does, by making me the scapegoat. I was always the problem. The family gets to dump all their trash on me. Everything was me, me, me. I was always the problem for everything. There was always chaos, always yelling, screaming, "You stupid," this, that, and the third. And I say all that to say that people used to tell me I was mean when I was in school. And I'm not a mean person. But they always said, "You mean." But that is because, and then sexual abuse, all types of things. So I didn't realize that I had a disposition because of what I was dealing with in my household. So I'm not smiling and happy. I'm outside and I look angry. And when people receive me or see my energy, they think I'm mean. They think I want to fight. But that's not what I want to do. I'm angry because of what's going on in my household. I'm holding it in and I don't realize that it's showing on my face. It's in my energy. It's in my disposition. But people thinking something of me that is not true.
Uh,
So
excuse me.
I,
How do we become a part? I'm sorry. My name is Daquee. I just called in. I don't know how you become a part of the conversation. I'm on a regular phone.
okay, so when you say how do you become a part of the conversation, do you want to ask a question or?
Well, I thought the show was a conversation. I don't know. This is my first time calling. This is my first time calling in, so I don't really know how it works.
Okay, it is a conversation. You can ask a question. So what I'm doing is just laying down certain chain of events and bringing the story to the forefront on how they came to their verdict. But if you have a question or anything that you would like to say, go ahead.
Okay. Well, as I said, my name is Daquee, and it's not so much a question. I have a concern that the position that is being presented is like Karmelo Anthony as a 17-year-old brought this on himself because the way he carried himself. When you are black in America, you don't have to do anything. You can just be walking. I mean, you can be laying in your bed and shot and killed. You can be playing your music and shot and killed. You could be walking down the street. And so, like Trayvon Martin, they presented him as the aggressor. He went out to get Skittles and a juice or iced tea, and he was shot by someone who said that they create the white America. They create the trope of the angry black woman and the dangerous black male. And it don't matter. You can have on a three-piece suit and be as gentle and easy. If you're a black man in America, white women clutch their bag and they see you as the aggressor. So, I think that it's problematic that, like, Trayvon Martin is dead. But he was crucified because they said he was dangerous, because they said he was the aggressor. And here we are with this young person, and what his family goes through, he doesn't deserve. This is racism. This is white supremacy. This is pure and simple another case of injustice that black people experience. And to always have to be, this is why black people are ill. Physically, with high blood pressure and mental health and broken spirits, is because the burdens, not that we don't have joy, not that we don't have happiness, not that we don't have love, not that we don't have fun, but the fact that we have to always be on guard. Make sure you act in this way. Make sure you act in that way. That's not on us. That doesn't mean that if we shouldn't, like you said, be mindful of the country we live in. This is a murderous, genocidal country that has been murdering black people with impunity since they started kidnapping us in 1619. As far as I'm concerned, there is nothing but racism and white supremacy that lays at the feet of why Karmelo Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Whether his mother is a narcissist, hooked on alcohol, hooked on drugs, whatever it is, they can be arguing all the time. We have a right to defend ourselves. That's a human right. So if you feel challenged, that you feel like your life is in danger, they teach us that we don't have a right to defend ourselves, and they have us believe in that. But we have a right to defend ourselves, and that the system is wrong for what it does. It chews up black people and spits them out, and that is what they did to him. From Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin to Sean Bell, I'm here in New York. The litany of cases go on and on and on. And so to say like that his mother and his household has something to do with him not knowing how to act. Why should he silence and dim his light? Because they have a problem with us with black folks not, quote, staying in our place. That's what they still believe. We supposed to shine their shoes, drive their cars, clean up their houses, be their porters. We're not supposed to be on equal standing with them. So as far as they're concerned, he didn't stay in his place. And that place that they have for black folks is subservient. Don't look them in the eye. Shuffle along. It's not right. No matter what it is, it's not right that this boy got 35 years in prison.
Oh, can I please chime in?
Go ahead.
You know, when I looked at this whole case, and it's difficult when we look at cases like this, especially being black in America, it's very difficult when these situations come up because it's almost as if, you know, if you agree with, you know, the quote unquote, you know, the speech narrative, I'm just put it like that, then you're somehow anti against your own. But when I look at this, you know, kid, Karmelo, and I say kid, you know, sparingly, but when I look at this, you know, kid, you know, I think of, you know, this scene from Bronx Tale, you know, with young Cologino and how, you know, when the mob boss Sonny, you know, pull him in the back room and put a gun in his hand and say, listen, I want you to shoot this guy. Cologino can't pull the trigger. You know, he's too scared to, you know, to take a life. You know what I'm saying? So another kid comes in and takes the gun and shoots. You know, that's a paradox, especially in our culture. Like, we have conditioned our community, you know, to violence. Now, whether that conditioning is a byproduct of the supremacy of, we say white supremacy, but, you know, that's kind of like that umbrella, you know, doesn't fit every situation. But in this particular case, this kid, you know, took a knife, regardless of what happened. You know, when I came up, we knuckle up, you know what I mean? And, you know, if you take an L, you take an L. But this generation don't, you know, move like that. You see what I mean? So, you know, the fact that, you know, because I don't think I could do that either. I don't think I could take a life in any way or capacity. That takes a certain level of, you know, commitment to do that. And what I'm saying is we have to ask the question, why are we, going back to your idea of strategy and moving strategically, we have got to recondition the next generation. Like, you know, unfortunately, you know, this, you know, brother is in a whole, you know, heap of, you know, he's just in a whole world now where he's going to become something different. And we want to prevent our kids from getting to that point. And we have got to stop, you know, allowing, you know, poor reactionary behavior to be the norm in our culture. That's what the world is seeing. We got to be more strategic. I just wanted to add that in there.
Okay, and I thank both of you for your comments. So, to your point, sister, the brother here answered, he spoke to some of the things that I was going to say. In no way, shape, or form am I saying that we should be subservient. I'd have to tell you, you know, so the brother that just chimed in knows me very well. There is no way. Okay, listen, I knuckle up, and still to this day, all right? However, what I am saying is that we still need to be more strategic. So when I speak about what's going on in his household, that plays a part in how he shows up in the world, and he doesn't know it because he's still young. So that is also to speak to the parents, that parents and adults need to do a better job with how they're handling themselves and how they're handling their family. Because if we have a parent that's overzealous and they become cumbersome to the family, but they're always get their way, so they cannot be spoken to, they cannot accept when they're wrong, their children are learning that. And so you have some children that understand that mom and dad is wrong. However, they can't tell their parents that. That builds up anger and frustration in the child. So sometimes these reactions are not necessarily what they want to do. It's pent up frustration. So it is important to speak about the parents, because the parents is showing the world that they have no remorse for the entire situation. Now, sister, I am a black woman and I understand what you're saying. And what I had said earlier is we have to learn how not to make our situation tie our situation with the situations that has happened to other black people before us. What we need to do is learn from these situations and say, what is the best strategy that I can apply? And I get that it's burdensome, but we still living, right? Unless we want to say as a people that we're just going to stop having children and stop procreating for our bloodline and our race to move on. But that is not something that we're thinking about doing or that we will do. However, we can overcome provided that we use the best strategy. And irrationalism, emotionalism is not going to work. And just because we're emotional doesn't mean that you have emotional intelligence, right? So there's a
Okay,
lot of things.
I have a question. Did
Yes.
the question of what kind of family Kyle Rittenhouse came from play into the conversation about him killing folks at the Black Lives Matter protest? Did what Dylan Roof, whatever his name is, that shot up them black folks in the church? Did that come into play? There is a double standard. That is the entire issue. That there is a double standard. There is a white privilege that allows young white people, kids, to shoot up schools, to shoot up churches, to shoot up people, to run people over with their car, yet black folks are just being human. And I don't know the whole story, but so I'm not questioning the whole story. What I'm saying is the injustice of the sentencing, because at the same time that he is sentenced to 35 years, then the white boy that does the same thing gets away or gets a lesser sentence. And this has been happening for centuries. This has always happened. So we cannot, it ain't no quote-unquote white supremacy. There is white privilege in this country, and it is the foundation on which this country is built. And so black people get one measure of injustice, and white people get another level of justice. And poor white people get treated badly too, right? But the same poor white person that goes up against a poor black person, the white person is going to get a better shot. And that's just a fact. That's not my opinion. That is throughout history. And so I believe.
But the fact that you know that is what we're talking about. Like, you know this. You know that black people have a complicated history. You know that black people are always going to be looked at differently than white folk. You know that. So why do we play into those realities and put ourselves in a bear trap? Because what we can do, as black Americans, number one, our history should make us skeptical to rush to judgment, number one. We know what happens when people decide first and investigate later. We know that. We know what we're up against, but yet we have this Stockholm syndrome for some reason. You know what I mean? Look at men. Men have been dealing with, double standards of, where women are concerned for eons as well. Like, we have got to reestablish the moral law. If we don't have the moral law on our side, and there was a time when we had the moral law.
When was
we
that?
don't have it today. The moral law. Black people have changed the Constitution, okay, so that every group that comes into America, has the right to the same rights as white Americans. That's, in order to do that, we had to have the moral law on our side. We had the moral law. We could, we used the media during the civil rights movement to demonstrate to the world how savage the individuals we were dealing with were. That's what gave us the moral law. When our kids were being water hosed by those folks, little Ruby Bridges, who, stood her ground when she walked in the face of those, a whole school that came out against her. Yes,
Right.
we had the moral law. But today we don't have that moral law because we allowed the crack era, to knock us off our moral pivot, and then we underdeveloped for decades. Manny Marvel talks about that in How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America. This is what we have to understand. We have got to do more research. We got to be more strategic. We got to be more patient. We got to be deliberate, and we got to stop, throwing our hat in the ring of, getting on the side of individuals who are. We can't keep allowing abnormal behavior to have a safe place in Black culture. We got to push people out.
I agree with that. There's a lot of dysfunction in the Black community, but the whole Black community and the whole Black nation has been pathologized by white supremacy and capitalism.
True. Now that we know this, we know this.
Not with blaming Black people for the position. We need to do better, but as Maya Angelou says, in order to do better, you got to know better. So what happens? Our children go to their schools that miseducate them, undereducate them, kill their curiosity, all of the things. Crack was put in the Black community in order to, just like heroin was put in the community to squash militant Black youth from becoming revolutionaries. So we have to look at that. We can't just say
the Native American is on reservations because they knocked off every single buffalo.
Let me add this. Wait a minute. We should be shifting. We should be shifting and adapting. So here's what I said. Remember what I said. Karmelo Anthony made that mistake and someone lost his life, right? What I am also focusing on is how his parents has handled this entire situation. I am saying when Austin Metcalf's father said that he forgave Karmelo Anthony last year, I heard him say it. Why didn't the family say, let's hone in on this and see what we can do to pull this family in and show the world that we are empathetic? We had no control over that situation. That man knows that his son is a bully. So I'm quite sure that he thought something like this would happen sometime. Just not that it would be done by a Black boy, right? But he forgave Karmelo. What I'm saying is this attitude that we have in the Black community where we showed no empathy. Even if you don't care, show it to the world. Bring this family in, because strategy, long-term thinking should tell them that my son eventually has to go to court to face this situation. What can we do as a family to show the other family that we are empathetic that they lost their son? Like I said, offer to pay for the funeral. Say, let me give you about $15,000 or so to send the other son to college. Something that shows that they are empathetic for the situation. And what I'm saying is, Karmelo Anthony may let me finish. Carmelo Anthony may not have gotten 35 years. What they did after watching how this family handled the situation and watching everything is they set this case up for Carmelo Anthony to lose. They didn't even allow Carmelo Anthony to get on the stand to explain himself so he could be cross-examined. How is it that the person that committed the act doesn't get on stand? Every criminal or every person that committed a crime eventually got on that stand and was cross-examined. Why didn't his attorney allow that to happen? But again, it goes back to, like you said, we are Black people and they're going to strategize against us. Knowing this already, the family, what this family spokesperson did by disrespecting Austin Metcalf's father, by not letting him pray with the family when they had a family prayer, spoke volumes. Even if you don't care about the man, let the man show up. He's still missing his son. Pray with the man. Let the man pray with the family. I mean, because we still got to think that Carmelo Anthony still has to face these charges. But if we sit here and say, I don't care altogether, my son did what he did, and think that you're dealing with a people that's going to give Carmelo grace, now so here's why I'm saying this. The mother is crying on, see, I'm not going to cry on TV. And it's not that I have too much pride. I am not going to let white people who are already against me see me crying and begging them to give him mercy. No, I'm going to put the power in my hand on how I strategize to show the world that we have empathy, pull that family in, offer some support because they lost a child, and in hopes see how that's going to work in our favor on how the charges that Karmelo received can be lessened. Right now, we don't know that because he has 35 years and they have done nothing to show empathy for the other side. Now they're fighting for an appeal. So why go through this where, so this is where I talk about strategy. Now, how I'm thinking when I heard that boy's father said that he forgave Karmelo, I would have been like, you know what? Let's cook a dinner. Let's invite this family over and tell them the food's on us. They don't have to bring anything. Let's talk. Let us have a healing session together, right? Because Carmelo still has to face these charges. But when it's all about, if a person is thinking all about themselves and it's all about their ego and their hubris, their extreme pride, and looking at things from a negative and an ignorant perspective, they don't allow themselves, they miss the opportunity to see longevity, long run strategy, and how their actions may or may not affect the court case. That's all I'm saying.
Permission to speak?
Yes.
This is Chandra. I get all that you're saying. The crack comparison, black people did not bring crack into the neighborhood. America did not discover that it had a drug problem until a few years ago when Jane and Joe Neckbone was hooked on opioids. I'm not trying to think of false equivalency here. You had the Ronald Reagan with the drugs for guns. I'm going to put that aside. Now,
okay.
The few things I know about the case was that it was raining when Karmelo went into the tent. And
Yes.
I saw on NBC an article saying that he knew someone that was in the tent. Although this person did tell him to get out, there was a dispute. We're dealing with now children that we're learning. Their brains are not developed until, I think, the late 20s or whatever.
25.
Yeah. And to me, my concern is, how is he going to fare in a Texas prison for the next 35 years? What's going to happen to him? How is he going to be treated? You know what I'm saying? And now, regardless of how his parents raised him, the prison system are now his parents. That's my concern.
Right. And that's unfortunate.
Oh, sorry. Permission to speak? My name is Ernestine Arlene. Wonderful show. I thought you gave a very, I didn't know that much about the case, and to your point, I think that our community needs to be more savvy. Another word for strategic, which is I was disappointed, especially when you brought up the fact that a lot of the potential black jurors admitted so freely that they couldn't send a black person to jail. That is so disappointing. We're supposed to take all of what we know, all of what was just discussed, all of our anger and be on code, and they thought they were being on code, obviously, but we're supposed to play them. Let them tell them whatever they want to hear so that we can be on the jury and know that we're going to stand by Karmelo. Like, that was just so disappointing. And I think this is what, so that we can avoid, because I'm thinking the same thing. Like, wow, how is he going to fare? They're going to eat him alive, right in there. They should have. I agree with all of the things that you said, because everyone knows, even the most like serial killers, they all get cleaned up. They all put on a suit. They all get their hair cut before, because perception is everything.
Right.
So it's not so much about kowtowing or what they call it. I forget the term when they're talking about like just a nice politics. I don't know. It's the term where we're just kowtowing to white supremacy.
Right.
Not exactly it, but you get what I'm saying. There has to be a savviness that we can say one thing and behind closed doors we have another plan.
Exactly.
We failed him. We did.
Because they did the same thing. They got on the jury. They were on code. Their minds was made up that they was going to sentence Karmelo, but when they were asked questions, they were their best. They gave the most balanced answer that proved that they should be on a jury. So again, we cannot continue to move in this way and then leave the power in somebody else's hands and then blame the white man because we're not being strategic enough. Another thing I want to point out is, let's keep it real. The Metcalf brothers, the twins, they're some good-looking dudes. They're the it fellas for their school, for their team. They play football for their team. They win games. We know how people are about their sports. The school that Karmelo Anthony went to when he moved into that neighborhood is not known for winning a lot of football games. So that school wasn't talked about until Karmelo Anthony got there. Now Karmelo Anthony is now the it boy. So there has to be some envy, some who does he is just moving into this neighborhood and being talked about. They can say that they don't know him all they want. When you're dealing with sports, you know who is who, right? You know who's the person that is helping the school win teams, especially when the school didn't win teams. And what I'm saying is we needed more critical thinkers for us, our community, to be a part of the jury. Because I guarantee you, if I was on the jury, I would have posed that, like, well, could envy be an issue? Because, the Metcalf twins are used to being the it guys. Now Karmelo moves in and he's an it guy. The other thing is this. These guys probably want to play for professional football and play for college. When college scouters come to school and they come to an area, they don't pick more than two and three people from that area, and maybe one or two. So the twins are already two. They don't in their mind. You don't know if they're thinking that we can't afford for another great player to come into this area and possibly be picked over us. And then we all know that black people run, sports. Every sports we dominate. So now and Karmelo runs track. So he has two sports under his belt. There's a lot that we should have taken into consideration. And I know that these things weren't brought up for people to take into consideration when they're talking about the Metcalf boys and Karmelo Anthony. The other thing is, I don't think I mentioned earlier. If I did, I'm going to mention again. I get into zodiac signs. People think zodiac is not a thing. It is a thing. Karmelo Anthony is a Taurus. That makes him a fixed sign. The Metcalf twins are Leos. That also make them a fixed sign. Both of those signs are egotistical, and none of them are standing down, and none of them are budging. Knowing this about personalities, who was there to talk to the fellas and say, hey, sometimes you lean a little bit to the left. You got to bring it in some, right? That's a factor. That we didn't have people as a juror with broad information, critical thinking, and the unbiasedness to pose questions and put things on the table to give people things to think about when it comes to Karmelo Anthony. And I have to say again, when it comes to self-preservation, we cannot expect another group and race of people to consider us. Self-preservation is just that. We have to learn self-preservation for ourselves. And we have to be I don't want to say the most intelligent, but we have to give ourselves the knowledge and the strategy that we need to ensure that we can put ourselves in position to have the backs of our own people when the time comes. With these responses that they gave when it came time to get picked, they did not get picked to be a juror. And then school teachers did not get picked. So no black person was on the jury. That is our fault. The other thing is this. We don't have the patience for long.
If I could speak to that point. Go ahead.
Let me add one more thing. The other thing is this. We don't have the patience for long conversations. So I've heard people saying that jury duty is kind of cumbersome. When it comes to your own people that's standing on trial, you're saying that jury duty is cumbersome. So at no time do you want to sacrifice or inconvenience yourself to make sure you got the back of your own people? No. But go ahead.
I thought about that point about the jury, and one, getting on a jury. First of all, you got to be a registered voter, and most, unfortunately, a large percentage of black people in America just don't participate in the vote. You know what I'm saying? So if you're already in a white community, and there are handfuls of black people that are in that community, it's not a far stretch to have a situation where there's no black people on the jury. Number one, and so going back to strategy.
But they did have people to choose from, though. They took themselves out of the game. But
That's
go
my
ahead.
point. I mean, if there's a limited number of individuals, I think there were like 1 or 3 black potential jurors, and we know the legal system. If the prosecution has a strategy, which they're going to have, they're going to strategize to try to win that case. This is just common sense. But going back to the whole idea of strategically moving and preserving oneself, we got to read. Mao Zedong wrote in Theory and Practice, no investigation, no right to speak. We don't investigate, and we rely on extrapolating from major situations that happen. You got people chiming into this case who didn't follow the case at all, but yet you got a loud opinion about the effects of racism in this country. Going back to the first thing,
I want to say this. I'm not giving you my opinion, and I do have practice and theory.
Yeah, but I don't know. But I don't know if I was talking about you directly. So listen, I don't even know you. I'm just listen. What I'm saying, no, I wasn't finished. First of all, and you trying to like yell over me also speaks to what I'm talking about. The kind of rudeness and disrespect that we allow in this culture. It's crazy that you can just go ahead and talk over what I'm saying. And then, oh my God, that doesn't make no sense. That's also connected with that double standard. Again, the point I was trying to continue with it before I was rudely like bogarted. Like we gotta stop doing that. We gotta stop doing that to each other. I wasn't done.
Yourself too. I hope you're including.
I wasn't finished my point, and you interrupted me and bogarted me, and I wasn't done the point. And then you want to sit up here and you want to play the victim now because, oh my God, the man said such a. This is the double standard we're talking about. But this is the double standard we're talking about. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that, and we got to stop making that nonsense normal in our culture. No, there's a protocol you need to learn to follow. Especially if we're having an open conversation.
Sister Arlene. Asada Shakur. She lived in exile.
Oh my God! You're gonna sit up here. You want to bring up Asada? I love. Listen. I read the book several times. I love her, but that's not the point. You're being rude. You're being rude, and you're doing it from my perspective because you're a woman. You women think you can just go around and just yell and say whatever you want to say in a situation where we're having a conversation. You can't do that.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to call you names.
I wasn't calling you names. There you go, getting ready to play the card. Go ahead, play it. Let's see it.
Excuse me.
Nobody's taking us seriously anymore because they're nonsense. They're tired of the nonsense that we allow.
Sister Arlene, you can mute the line.
Okay, so listen.
This mute the whole entire line.
Everybody be quiet. 1 second.
Okay.
Listen, I'm going to mute. Everybody's going to go on mute. Okay. So the brother was talking. I want him to unmute his phone. Before he unmute his line, he was not speaking to you when he talked about racism and such. I think you took it as he was speaking to you or about you, and you interrupted what he was saying. And so he was right for speaking up to what he said, because we allow that too often in our communities to happen, where we're disrespecting one another and speaking over one another. He wasn't speaking to you, but brother, again, okay, you could take it easy on her when you say you wasn't speaking to her, but please do not speak over each other. Let the brother finish. He was not speaking about you. He was just talking in general about what we do. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, unfortunately, I read Revolutionary Suicide by Huey Newton, and that's the problem in black culture. We have a male population that doesn't know how to stand on its own business, and that lack in our community has created a vacuum that led to the kind of reactions that come out of brothers like Karmelo Anthony. Because that brother broke down, the most telling to me was the way he broke down when the sentence came down. You could see the kid in him. And I'm a teacher. I've been teaching middle school kids for 30 years. And you can, it's like the case in Chicago where the mother got ran down on by a group of kids, and they, started beating that mother up and them kids. That mother put her phone up in the air to, record what was taking place. But nonetheless, when the little girl was being grilled by her mother, the little girl broke down crying, and mad people in the black community said, well, you know what, she's not being sincere. Yes, she was. Yes, she was. Just like Karmelo Anthony was being very sincere when he broke down, because that kid knows in his heart of hearts he should not have done that. And he'll be, it won't even take a decade of him being in that sentence before he realizes and shows tremendous remorse for what he did. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like what O.G. Bobby Johnson said in South Central when he was talking to J-Rock. He said, you know what, you can, punch a man in the face. In time, his wounds will heal, and you can come back and say, apologize to that man. You steal his goods, you can come back and return them and apologize. But when you take a life, there's no coming back from that. There's no repairing that. So for our children to be conditioned to take a life with such on something so petty, like, come on, man. We're missing the major issue here. We have to teach the next generation of children, because many of us are broken already. Many of our culture, we got too many broken people, trying to set the agenda. I mean, drug dealers out here, and don't get me wrong, I do agree with and believe in second chances. But when you, have destroyed mad families selling poison in our community, and then you go do your time, and then you come back out, and then you become the biggest voice for, no, what about all of them individuals that you helped slaughter? Why don't you go back and, fix some of those families, make amends to some of them people before you start wanting to be the next Malcolm X? That's all I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? We got a culture that is backward right now, and we can't stay that out in front, out in public, because we get shamed by individuals within the culture who just got loud mouths.
And that is true. And I thank you, Brother Bernard, for that. And I thank all of you for your input. I know it's 8:23. I don't know if Brother Bill Graves is coming on afterwards. Brother Forrest, do you know Bill Graves? Because it's 8:23, and I know Brother Bill Graves wants to come on. We're going to reconvene with this topic at another time, because, like I said again, they're working on getting an appeal for this matter, okay? And hopefully that happens. Let's see. But as Brother Bernard said, when we talk about remorse, that's what I was leaning on when I said that his parents did not take up the mantle on that to show remorse for him. And had they have done that, maybe the sentencing could have been different. And I know it's easy to play Monday Night Football, but I will say this, because some people will say, well, we don't know because he's black. They would have canned him anyway, right? And I will say this. You miss 100% of the shots that you never take. So the goal is always to make a shot. Make the shot. You never know what the outcome could be. But if you don't take that shot, you're just going to miss it altogether. And when we do that, hold ourselves accountable and say, I didn't take that shot. Don't point the hands and the fingers at the white man. Because we continue to say, they're not going to change what they're doing. And let's be real. Collectively, we don't have strong energy backing us, so they don't take us seriously, and they're not going to move in our honor and in our favor, right? We have to do things differently, right? Look at the young brother that got shot and killed by the Chinese guy at the store. I mean, listen, would I have ran? I don't think I would have ran out of the store. You know why? Because he put all the water bottles back. He didn't have anything on him. There was no reason to run. I would have stayed right there. You want to check my bag? Check my bag. But now you run outside of the store. And again, we don't know what these young kids are thinking, but it goes back to What are we teaching our children? But if we're having too much of these kind of conversations where there's a lot of attitude, there's a lot of hubris, there's a lot of so what, I did it, and because that's what we do in our community. What you going to do? All right, well, that seems to fly in the black community, and it doesn't really work because we don't trust each other. So all we have is not no trusting and a lot of backbiting. But when it comes time to dealing with people outside of our culture and our community, and we have to deal with the court system, that's not going to fly. It's not going to fly. I'm a civil and family and divorce court mediator. You know how many cases that come across my desk where people were doing these things to each other, disrespecting each other, not listening, crossing boundaries. But now, when someone files charges, you got to go to court. And then you got to come in front of my desk to mediate a matter that you were showing that other partner no respect. Now you have to show respect, and you can't come into mediation with that kind of attitude and think that you're going to find some kind of resolve with this person who wants to sue you for $1 million now, right? It doesn't work when it comes to the court system. And I would like to say, before we close out, it's better that we think about doing things in a ways whereas is it right in the court of law? That's what I ask myself first. Anytime I'm doing something, will I be found guilty or not in the court of law? And I work myself down. So it seems like I have no ego, and I don't have to have the slap back and the clap back. But I know that I'm doing things the right way in the court of law. Should this ever get in the hands of the court of law, I pretty much is not going to be held liable for crossing any boundaries or doing anything sacrilegious to my own people, right? So it goes back to strategy, how we thinking about ourselves, and how we moving in this world. We got to move different. We do. Until next time, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Bernard Clark, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And so,
oh yeah, peace and power, sister. Excellent program. Thank you.
You're welcome. And for all of you, have a good evening, and we'll reconvene. Brother Bill Graves comes on after me. Someone just dinged in, so I'm quite sure they're waiting for him. And after Bill Graves will be Baba John or Baba Joe. Brother Forrest, do you have anything to say before I close out? Or maybe not. You all have a good evening.